Ichimon Japan is made possible in part by Patreon support. If you'd like to support the show, then head on over to japankyo.com/Patreon and sign up for as little as $1 a month. Just a heads up, towards the end of the episode, we discuss a certain movie that hadn't come out yet, but it is out now, so that information is a little bit out of date, but the rest of the episode is totally okay. The reason for all this is that these episodes take a while to release, and I just happened to release a bunch of other episodes before I got to this one. So now you know, you won't be confused when we get to that part. Here it is, the episode. Hope you enjoy. LA style, like helicopter in the sky following a scooter type police chase. Like, this does not happen in Japan. And if it were to happen, this lady would go to
news.
Welcome to Ichimon Japan. I'm Tony.
And I'm Ryan.
And today we are going back into, I guess this is going to be like
movie files?
Yeah. This is a continuing series that is not that regular. But yeah, going back to movies that Tony missed for whatever reason, and we shall discuss them. So let's talk about the question, or well, let me present the question. And today's question is Weathering with You bad?
Oh, that English name is horrible. It's a Japanese name.
Weathering with You is Tenki No Ko in Japanese. Of course, the last movie by the well-known Japanese animator director Makoto Shinkai, or Shinkai Makoto. Of course, of Kimi no Nawa, or Your Name fame. And we did do an episode on Your Name, so you can go back and listen to that one. But I had also not seen Weathering with You, and so we figured we'd do an episode on this one. So this movie came out in 2019, so like 2.5-3 years after Your Name. And it was a pretty big deal in Japan, of course, not surprisingly, because Kimi no Nawa was such a huge deal. So if the creator of that movie puts out another movie, it's only logical that that one would be a pretty big deal. And it did do very well financially. I think currently it's last I saw, it was like the 6th highest ranking animated film in Japan. And I think Your Name is the 3rd. Was
that before or after Kimetsu no Yaiba? Because that had to have passed it.
You know, and I'm not totally sure. I just looked on Wikipedia, so I'm not sure when that was last updated. But
yeah, I haven't seen things, but in case people don't know, like during Corona, they released Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer, the movie.
Yeah.
And it was like a super mega hit, even though it was during Corona here.
Yeah. But
I saw mini review. I saw it on DVD later. I don't understand why it was a hit.
Well, because the anime was such a hit, so it already had the established fan base, obviously.
I guess.
Yeah.
Anime movies are pretty common here, though. That one was like exceptionally big for a movie release, though.
It was. But again, yeah, Kimetsu no Yaiba was just huge. It was huge, so there you go. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole other topic. Yeah. But anyway, so Kimi no Nawa, I think, is like the 3rd highest grossing film in Japan, you know, as of the last time I checked. So anyway, whether things have moved on since those statistics were published, I don't know, but the point remains that Tenki no Ko is still top 10 most likely, or top 7, top 6. So that just goes to show how well it did when it was released.
I just quickly checked it. Kimi no Nawa was the 5th grossest currently.
Oh, okay.
And number 1 is Demon Slayer.
Damn! Really? Wow.
It got 9 billion more yen than Spirited Away, which is number 2.
Wow, man, that's huge. Like to throw Spirited Away
by such a huge degree.
Yeah.
Weathering with You, Tenki no Ko is 13th. It's behind Ponyo,
okay.
Which is surprising because I didn't think Ponyo was all that popular.
Well, relatively speaking, but still, you know, I think for 2019, it was Tenki no Ko was the highest grossing, and not surprising, but it did get a bunch of awards, and you know, it was a big, you know, phenomenon at the time. But I would, as evidenced by the total gross, and I think by the total kind of presence like on Japanese TV and buzz online and the reception abroad in terms of how much YouTube content I've seen about Tenki no Ko, I think that it does not have the same kind of impact that Kimi no Na wa continues to have.
No, not at all. I remember, since I was here throughout the whole thing and through now, it was kind of a big deal coming up to it when it came out. But now, 2 years later, no one mentions this movie anymore. If they mention the director, it's always Kimi no Na wa.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot the name of the movie, to be honest, before we did this episode.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. I like, even if you look at it
faded away quickly.
I in a way, yeah. Like, I think if you, well, I did a little bit of research before this recording, and so I was looking at like English language content on Tenki no Ko versus English language content on Your Name, and there's quite a bit more both on YouTube. Well, mainly I was looking on YouTube, and I saw many more videos discussing Your Name as opposed to Weathering with You. So I think that just goes to speak for the kind of cultural impact that Kimi no Na wa had, more so than, Weathering with You. So take that for what it is. But I didn't know anything about this movie. Anything about the plot. I assumed I don't think I'd even seen a trailer for it. I didn't know anything about the rain and all that stuff. I knew like basically nothing aside from the fact that it had something to do with the weather, probably because in Japanese it's Tenki no Ko, weather child, and then in English it's Weathering with You, a pun on weather. So I just figured, okay, I guess it has something to do with the weather. That's basically it. I knew nothing, had zero expectations. So I went into it pretty much as blind as I could.
It had to do with the weather. It's a movie about weather forecasts.
It's kind of. Well, it's about controlling the weather in a way. Did you see this when it came out, or when did you first see it, Ryan?
I saw it in theaters probably opening weekend. I don't remember too clearly. And I guess I'll go into that since we're talking about it now, because I saw it then and I watched it last week again to prepare for this, and I had two very different takes. And I think the biggest reason was the environment.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think is generally universally agreed is that the visuals are quite good.
Yep, that's everybody, and I agree too.
Yeah, I agree too. And seeing it in theaters with the animation on like a gigantic screen makes it very, very impressive. And I came out liking it. Watching it last week on my TV and like paying much more attention to the story and the characters, my opinion was drastically lower than my initial impression.
Yeah. It's an utterly beautiful. I mean, Your Name was a beautiful movie as well, and Makoto Shinkai is known for beautiful movies, and rightfully so. I mean, he does produce just absolutely beautifully animated movies, and Tenki no Ko is no exception. There are just absolutely beautiful sequences with the rain and the weather and water and Tokyo and all that stuff. But like I said, I went in blind. I didn't know about the weather or anything, and then I didn't know anything about the story.
Weather in it?
Well, I didn't know it for sure. I suspected it had weather in it in some way. And so what I got out of it is I was not particularly impressed by the story itself. I was never bored, and I was never disengaged. I did want to see what would happen next, and I was there the whole way till the very end. But I found multiple points in the story that just basically ruined the overall experience and left me with a kind of middle of the road impression of the overall product.
I agree with that. I think for all of its many problems, pacing is not one of them.
Yeah, no problem at all. Like every scene, I think right on, like you keep wanting to know how it's going to go next, and yeah, thoroughly engaging. So no problems there. Unfortunately, just some of the pivotal plot points for me just kind of just frustrated me. But let's kind of go through the movie, and then we can maybe, when we get to those points, we can discuss them in more detail. So obviously from this point on, we're going full out spoilers. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see it unspoiled, go see it now. And if you don't care or you've already seen it, well, hey, we're going all out here. So. All right, so the story, basically, the main protagonist is this kid named Morishima Hodaka. He's a runaway.
Does he actually say his name Morishima at some point? Because I don't remember that ever. Everyone just calls him Hodaka.
I think some maybe like the police or someone else. I think someone else says the last name. So he runs away from his rural island home in Japan somewhere else and goes to Tokyo. He's
with no plan whatsoever.
No plan whatsoever. And Tokyo is in the middle of this like freak weather phenomenon where every day it's like raining heavily.
Also known as Tsuyu.
Tsuyu, yeah. So this is like such a Tsuyu like rainy season kind of movie, except like rainy season lasts for like a month in Japan. In this movie, it never ends, literally. So
it was funny watching that living in Ishikawa because it's like, oh, Tokyo is such a rainy place. Like, you guys have no idea.
Ishikawa's like this every day.
This is irregular weather for you. This is like light rain for us.
So Hodaka runs away to Tokyo with no plan, and he's basically like this homeless kid. And then what happened? His life is in danger briefly, right?
I'm trying to remember the very, very beginning. I only saw it last week, and I don't remember already.
There's this point early in the movie where he gets saved by this guy named Suga. I think his first name is Keisuke.
On the boat, right? Yeah.
So he's gonna like get washed out like into the ocean or something.
Yeah, and he also I think is just like starving too.
True. So this random guy, Suga, his last name is Suga. He saves him, and he's like, I'm your savior. Like I've never saved somebody's life. Like now I saved your life. So anyway, if you need any help, like
basically,
he says something like that. Yeah. He's a funny guy. I like him. Again, I think I like all the characters that have any significant screen time. So Hodaka is iffy, but aside from Hodaka, I think I liked everybody else. So,
as I mentioned before we started this, I think Hodaka has that. I guess the term people use for that genre of anime is harem anime, where it's like one guy with like 6 girls hanging out. Yeah. Where the main character always has like no personality or anything about them whatsoever, yet everyone's in love with him anyway. I think Hodaka suffers from that. He's just very much plain boy.
Yeah. Well, his personality trait is, I don't want to go home.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Exactly.
His hobbies and interests are not going home.
Yeah. and saving random girl with a gun, which we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this guy's like, I saved you. Ha ha ha. Okay. If you ever need anything, let me know.
I'll save you again.
Yeah. And so then Hodaka is like he I guess because he doesn't have any kind of like ID they specifically ask him for like a student ID, I guess to kind of figure out that he's not a runaway. So he doesn't have anywhere to stay. He's kind of like looking for a way to make money, and he's like sleeping in the street looking for food. And then one day he's looking for food, and he's like at a McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
Is that how it goes?
I will mention this was the first movie I remember that it actually used real brands instead of just like having funnily renamed things. Like it would be like Don Michaels or something in other movies.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, it was an actual McDonald's. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all of them too. They actually go to like 7-Eleven and stuff too.
They must have gotten some nice cash.
It's funny because I actually was disappointed because I like seeing the like funny little pun names they make in the other movies.
Yeah. So all right. So So what happens is he's at this McDonald's, but this girl feels bad for him, and she gives him a burger, right?
Yeah, it's like an official Big Mac, man. It even says in the box.
Oh, man. Da-da-da-da-da! And so this girl is, what's her name? Amano Hina. Last name Amano Hina. Hina's the first name. And she gives him a burger. She feels sorry for him, and then story goes on. I think he doesn't get the job yet, right? Like, does he?
Yeah, I
get
think
the
he
job
tries
yet?
some other places, but they all refuse him first.
So does he run into her again, and then he gets a job, or which one comes first? I don't remember. But
I
anyway,
don't remember the order there either. I think he runs into her first, because I think he was still like sleeping on the streets when he sees her.
Yeah.
And then he gets the job and like the board later.
True. Okay, so if we're wrong, sorry, but anyway, the point is that he eventually he runs into the girl again, but not before having come across a gun. Right?
Yeah,
so,
he
just finds a gun on the street or something.
It's like in a trash can.
Okay, yeah. So he just finds a gun in Japan. That's like
Japan, famous for just guns everywhere.
That's like finding a leprechaun in Miami. Okay, so like, yeah, there's no guns in Japan. All right, like it's so unlikely that you would just randomly come across a gun in Japan. For me, this is the most unbelievable part of the movie. That the fact that a kid would just randomly come across a loaded gun, not just like with one bullet, but at least two bullets.
It's wrapped up in paper in a trash can, which I took that to be it was like some gun used by some Yakuza guy who was trying to dispose of it.
Yes.
But if that's the case, why is it still loaded?
Yeah. Like even if that's the case, you know, okay, stories have fantastical coincidences, whatever. Okay, maybe, sure, yeah, many do. But
it's wrapped up in paper, so whoever threw it away was like planning on disposing of it. You would think, hey, if this goes off, it might be found. I should take the bullets out.
Yeah. And Hodaka just assumes, oh, this must be a toy.
For several days without ever checking.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't care if you've never seen or held a gun. Well, okay, if you've never seen a gun, then I can believe it. But if you
what is this strange thing I found?
What is this ergonomically correct thing I'm holding? Oh God, no, not okay. Yeah, so if you've seen a gun but you've never held one, if you held a toy gun, which probably most kids have, at least even for a second, and then you hold a real gun, you're gonna at least have a tiny little bit of doubt in your head, and you're going to go, is this a real gun?
If you never have held a real gun, they're much heavier than you probably expect.
Yeah. A loaded gun especially.
Yeah. Like they're full. Bullets in general are way heavier than people expect, I think.
Yeah. And a loaded gun with a clip in it, like it's going to rattle a bit. Like it's going to have things that make you go like, I wonder if this is a real gun. Like, so anyway, but he just assumes it's a toy. Okay, so anyway.
Even if it is a toy, why does he keep it? What does a high school kid want with a toy gun?
Yeah, like this runaway kid. Why do you need a toy gun?
Is he planning to like rob someone with his toy gun later? He's just a bad guy, apparently.
I don't know.
Kidnapping women and robbing places.
So anyway, let's get to the kidnapping. So again, some time passes. He goes. He's by the McDonald's again, I guess, but. What he sees is this shady looking gangstery guy.
He met the shady guy before, though, right? Should we mention that?
Oh, did he? I don't remember.
It's only a brief scene, so maybe I'm wrong. It's someone else, but like he's sleeping in like the stairwell of like an apartment, and the shady guy comes with like two girls.
Yeah. So he's basically like a Yakuza type guy.
Yeah.
So he does see him before, and then but he sees him again, kind of trying to take away the girl, like walk away with the girl that had given him that had given him the burger, right? Again, Hina, her name is Hina. So he just jumps to the conclusion that like he's taking her away to, I don't know, do bad things to her or something. And he pulls out the gun, shoots it, and then grabs Hina and runs away with her.
Which we're supposed to assume he's the hero rescuing her from some kind of implied prostitution life or something.
Yeah.
But from her perspective, she's going willingly, and a weird hobo kid jumps out with a gun, grabs her, and runs away. Like,
yeah,
she should think she's being kidnapped, because she is.
Yeah, and the implication later on, because through the discussion that they have later on, it seems that she was willingly going with this guy to perhaps get some sort of like late night like hostess kind of job or something along those lines.
Because she does mention she got fired from McDonald's.
Yeah. For, I think, probably for the burger, probably?
She explicitly says it wasn't the burger.
Oh, but you never know. I mean, in Japan, if you give a free burger, that's a huge deal. Like, it's not like in the US where you might be able to get away with it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like, that's doubtful. But anyway, the point is that she was going willingly, even if for shady purposes, but whatever. She needed the money. She's not homeless, but she's an orphan kid trying to make her own way in Tokyo and provide for her
we don't know that
little
yet,
brother.
yeah.
We don't know that yet, but she's got her motivations to do this. And then he basically just comes and snatches her away after shooting a real gun in Japan, where that doesn't happen. This isn't the U.S. where you might come across a gun. This is in Japan.
When he meets the weird Yakuza guy earlier and he's with the two girls, they also don't seem unwilling or particularly unhappy.
Yeah.
So he's kind of just making a very strong moral judgment against everything about that guy based on nothing and willing to kill him apparently over it.
Yeah. So again, and
he's the hero.
He's the hero, exactly. He's the hero. So he takes Hina away to this abandoned building, I guess. I don't know who says let's go.
Out, for all we know, he intended to shoot the guy and just missed. It's never really clear.
Yeah, totally true. Yeah. So somehow they end up at this abandoned building. I don't know who decides to go to this place.
Yeah, the magic building.
But this is the abandoned building that becomes part of the story later on, right?
Well, yeah, I think we saw it in the flashback, too, because it shows her leaving the hospital and going there in the beginning.
But isn't this, then another incredible coincidence? How did they end up there? Why would Hina tell this kid that just shot a gun, let's go to this place that means something special to me?
Yeah, let's go to my secret special place because you're my kidnapper and now I love you, I guess.
Yeah. But see, the first 10 seconds that they're at the abandoned building, she's like, "Oh my God, how could you shoot a gun? You're such a scary
I don't love
person."
You yet. Let me take you to my special secret place.
Yeah, but she calls him specifically for what he does, kimochi warui, which can be translated disgusting or
you're so gross
gross or whatever. Because he had a gun that he shot.
Yeah, but he is dragging her arm, so I guess he just incidentally runs to her secret place on accident.
What a coincidence, right? And then 10 seconds after she calls him disgusting or whatever, then they're totally fine. She's totally fine with him. And she decides to show him her magic power, which is kind of the one of the cruxes of this whole story, that she can create a sunny spot in the sky. She can clear the clouds so that it stops raining around her. And make waterfish. Yeah. So she's got this magic power which she can make it stop raining, and she just decides to show this kid that just shot a gun and took her away against her will. But there's no moment there that makes you go oh, now I see Hodaka is not this weirdo. He never proves that to her.
I want to see this movie from her perspective. It turns out he just has his delusions and that's how he's seeing it. But from her point of view, she's terrified the whole time and she's using these powers to try to scare him away so she can escape. Like Storm from the X-Men. She's like, I can control the weather. You better let me go. And he's just like, I have found my true love.
Yeah. And
which is also what happens with Storm in the
X-Men. So now they're best friends, right? Now he's able to go to her apartment and they start a business together.
She introduces him to her younger brother.
Yep.
You'd think she'd want to protect her younger brother from crazy maniac with a gun, but they're cool.
No. And not only that, they end up becoming business partners. He's like, you know what we can do? I know you need money, and he doesn't say that he needs money specifically, but because he's working even though he's not earning much money. We'll get back to that, but she needs the money.
A month.
Yeah, it's almost nothing, but at least he has a place to sleep. So anyway, so she needs the money because has to pay for rent and food for her and her brother. So he's like, let's use your power to clear the sky. When people need a sunny day, we'll go over them and charge them 5,000 yen, $50, and we'll use your magic power, your magic power.
Do they pick 5,000 yen? Because I feel like the price fluctuated drastically depending on who hired them.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but the
last little
figures,
kids want to practice something outside and they end up giving him 300 yen or something.
Oh, well, maybe there's exceptions, but anyway, the implication is that the base rate at least started at 5,000 yen. So anyway, so now they go into business partners and they're totally fine with each other, and Hodaka basically falls head over heels for her.
It's also worth pointing out they're business partners. He contributes nothing to this business.
Yeah, he set up the the job posting or whatever on like I don't know Craigslist.
Yeah, that's it. He just wrote like weather witch for hire.
Yeah,
and then he takes 50% of the money for the rest of his life.
Meanwhile, she's like slowly disappearing into like nothingness. Oh my god! All right, so but anyway, before they become business partners, Hodaka ends up contacting the guy that saved his life, Suga, and he ends up like living in his little office because he's like a publisher of this kind of like occult magazine, kind of funny magazine, like those like supermarket tabloid kind of magazine.
Yeah, they call it a cult. It's more like Toshi Densetsu,
urban
like
legends.
Urban legends. Yeah, just like funny little interesting stories. It's not like
horoscopes.
Where can you meet Satan
like
today? Kind of thing.
Bat boy. Anyway, so he gets a job with him writing articles, even though he's like 16 years old, but apparently he's at least halfway decent at writing stuff.
Does he write? I thought he just investigated.
Well, he investigated, and then there was like one scene where he was actually writing, and Suga was like, write faster.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he gets a job, and he's living there in the office, but he's getting some food and a place to stay, and like 3,000 yen a month, which is $30. Not much at all.
That is my favorite
whatever.
joke of the movie is the girl that works with him asks, like, how much are you paying him? And he just, like, holds up 3 fingers. And she's like, 30,000? That's so little. And he's like, no, 3,000.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, but I'm giving him a place to stay.
I mean, legitimately, he is giving him a place to stay, food and clothing.
Yeah. Which, in Tokyo especially, I mean, that does come out to maybe, like, I don't know, $600 or something. So anyway, so he gets his job, and at least things are better for Hodaka. And then on top of that, he's also getting some money from working with Hina, and they're going around all over the city, and their little business is becoming more and more popular, and they're going to like flea markets and little events here and there to make the sky open up and stop raining for whatever that day event is.
Yeah.
And they're having a wonderful time, and the three of them, the little brother and Hina and Hodaka, they're just yay, everything's going wonderfully. Then here we get to one part. We get to the part with the old lady. So this like old lady hires. Thing? Yeah. The old lady hires them to, for Obon. Yeah, it was like
they want to have good weather for their Obon.
Yeah, August, I guess, thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but here's just something interesting for the Your Name fans. The boy there is Taki. Well, at least he has the same name, Taki from Your Name.
Okay, I thought he looked familiar-ish, but I didn't really remember who they were trying to go for.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's the grandson of the old lady or whatever, but they have the same last name as Taki.
Completely different city, though.
Yeah, well, it's Tokyo. I mean, but
oh, you mean the? Well, never mind.
Taki is the boy, right? In Your Name.
I forgot his name. I forgot Your Name of Your Name.
Yeah, but I mean that's just a cameo thing. I'm sure the studio was like, "Look, come on, you got to put
shared
him in
universe."
Yeah, shared
the next
universe.
movie, Tokyo's already destroyed at the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, spoiler.
And then of course Mitsuha, the girl from Your Name, also makes an appearance when she sells the ring to Hodaka.
I didn't recognize her either.
Yeah, I mean it's subtle. They're not like, "Hey, you're from that movie." No, I mean it's relatively subtle, but that is her. So anyway, that scene is notable for the cameo, and also the lady comes back later on in the movie, the old lady. But anyway, so the business is going well, but then at some point it seems like the media is starting to pay attention to this, like they're getting some traction online or something, and so they start to decide to like maybe we shouldn't be doing this business anymore. But at the same time, the police are looking for Hodaka because he's both a missing child that I guess his parents put out a missing person's report, but also the guy that he shot at just happened to be a police informant.
He's also on video, right? Like a security camera, I thought, saw him shooting.
Oh, was it? I
think so, because he shoots when he misses the guy, he shoots a street lamp.
Okay, well, all right. So Yeah. So again, another coincidence there. It's like this guy just happens to be a police informant. So now the police are looking for this kid that has a gun and this missing kid. And so there's one point I think where he runs away. Right, he manages to get away from the police.
And social services had already visited the girl's house, I think, at this point too.
True, yeah. So because it turns out that she's not 18 like she originally says, she's actually 15. And so, like, they're orphan kids living alone. Somehow they managed to get an apartment. I don't know how.
I think they just kept the same house. Like, their mom died a year ago and
true.
they just didn't move out.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. Yeah, so the mom died of some medical thing at some hospital. And, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, there's increasing pressure from both sides where it's like the authorities are coming for Hodaka and they're coming for Hina as well. It gets to this kind of big point where they decide to run away together because Hodaka is absolutely crazy for her. Her birthday was coming up and he had bought this ring that he was going to give to her. But before that happens, they decide to run away. And he's like,
by this point, they've known each other for about, 10 days. So he's willing to die for her.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's like, no, I'm not going back home. She told him like, no, you should go back home. It's like, no, let's run away together. So they end up running away together. But we're talking about a bunch of one 15 and one 16-year-old and one probably like 11 or 12-year-old. They have some money because of the money they made together, with the weather business.
Also, the cultist guy tells him to go home when it starts happening because the police come to his door while he's not home, and he ends up giving him like 60,000 yen or something to pay his way home.
True.
Which
That's true.
For the runaway,
Yeah. So Suga, okay, so he wasn't paying him much, but he gave him a place to stay. He gave him a job. He was being like super nice to him. He saved his life, and he shared like moments. He brought him over to his family, his daughter, to meet his daughter. The girl
they hired
that works,
him to make like the daughter daddy day sunny.
Yeah. So, Suga like does nothing wrong, and then the police show up, asking about Hodaka. I think Suga's reaction is perfectly reasonable. He's like, look, I know this is a tough situation, but you should go home. Like, I have things that I have to do for my family. I can't, even if Hodaka were to stay there, eventually the police would come back and take him away anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing Suga can do to protect him.
But the movie portrays this like it's selfish. Like his niece comes and like yells at him for like not wanting to harbor fugitives.
So yeah, that doesn't. There's another little thing there in the plot that doesn't quite make sense to me. Like I have nothing. There's nothing wrong with what Suga did.
Not at all. No.
Hodaka was just
he looked out for him the whole freaking time until the police are literally like, "We will arrest you." There's also a subplot where he's trying to like get back in contact with his ex-wife or separated wife. I don't know if they're divorced or not.
No, so the wife died. I think.
Okay, sorry. The mother-in-law took custody of the daughter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the mother-in-law took custody of the daughter, and so she's very strict about allowing him access to the daughter.
So he's trying to prove that he is
guy.
a good man to see his daughter again. So being arrested for having a crazed gunman child living with him could throw a wrench into that.
Yeah, exactly. And he gives him $600 to go home. He doesn't need $600 to go home.
He gives him way more than enough money, probably because he feels guilty for not paying him very much. But I don't even think a full month had passed, so...
It certainly doesn't seem that way. But anyway, whatever, regardless, I have no problems with what Suga decides to do at that moment. So anyway, Hina and Hodaka run away. They can't find a place to stay, and then they run into a police officer, and he's about to like snatch him away, but he manages to get away from the police officer. They run.
By having lightning blow up his car.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Hidaka like summons lightning.
She's literally Storm at this point.
She summons lightning. But again, I'm perfectly fine with the lightning more than the gun.
In the story, it makes more sense. It is weird that the Hare Onna can summon lightning now, but whatever.
Yeah. So sorry, we should say Hare Onna is not
Sun
an original
girl?
concept. Yeah, like it's this thing that people say in Japan. Hare means like the sunny or to be clear as in a clear sky.
Yeah.
And then onna means woman. So it's this thing that people say about themselves where they might say like, I'm a hareonna, so it just when I go out, like the sky clears up, it's not going to be a rainy day. And sometimes you hear like ame onna, or like sometimes you hear otoko too, like where it's like, oh, whenever I go out, it's gonna be rainy, or the opposite.
I guess it's also worth pointing out, before the lightning strike, she had decided to not use her powers anymore. Yeah, I don't think she had revealed to him, but she had seen herself getting watery. Apparently, you transform into water if you do this too much. Yeah.
So she's kind of like, in a way, almost like fading away, Back to the Future style, except more watery.
So she decides not to do it, but then she uses the lightning there.
Yeah. Which is the first time we've seen her use lightning, but okay, fine, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
There's no, like, the only, again, if you want to be nitpicky, which I guess, I don't know, some of the things we're pointing out, I don't think is nitpicky at all, but
she does also almost murder people, basically, because the car explodes and, like, starts a fire.
Yeah, like, it's only ever established that she can make it's sunny. It's never alluded to the fact that she can summon lightning. But fine. We'll allow it. So anyway, so she almost kills at least the police officer or someone.
And all the surrounding people.
Yeah. But because of that, they managed to get away. And they end up going to a love hotel where they pay, I think, like $280, like Nima Hasen.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Like yeah, which is, it normally would not be that expensive. Even for a lot of like business hotels, like that's still more expensive.
It's a high-class hotel, though. They have like a jacuzzi and like a karaoke machine, like, in the room.
For a love hotel, it's really not.
I guess I've never been to one. The room looked fancy.
So, love hotels, not all of them. Some are quite small, but many of them are quite large like that. I don't know about a central Tokyo love hotel, so I can't speak to that. But anyway, let's not get too deep into that. So,
next episode, love hotels. Tony will share all of his experiences with us.
I do have a crazy one, but not in the not to be talked about in front of children kind of way, in the kind of like absolutely silly, wacky design kind of way. But maybe for another episode.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I should just say this out here, but if that was a love hotel at that fancy place, I kind of want to go see one.
Look, they're like
the one here, the one we have here. Going off subject, I've never gone in it, but I've driven past it. It looks like a dump, so I just assumed they weren't very nice inside.
Look, many love hotels are some of the most spacious like rooms that you can get for the price in Japan, compared to those business hotels that are tiny, absolutely tiny, and often not even cheap. So sometimes love hotels can be a really good deal. But that's a whole other topic, which we can get into.
For the price they paid for how big the room is, at least if it compared to like a normal hotel, that's not... I don't know if it's been inflation, but I occasionally need to get hotels here, and that was a good price, I think.
Well, I agree. Relatively speaking, maybe not, but in some cases, especially like... for a hotel of that size, yeah. Okay, anyway, but that's a whole other thing. So anyway, I think the point.
So when you guys come to Japan, audience, please stay at a love hotel. Tell us about it. I've never been there.
Yeah, tell us about it. Well, not what you do, but just the hotel. So anyway, I think the point of that scene was that the lady was charging them more because they were kids, and she was trying to get a little extra something out of them. But anyway, so they spend the night at this nice love hotel. It's a wonderful, really enjoyable. Time. Yeah, they have a wonderful time. And they probably end up spending more money because I think they eat out of the mini fridge. So they're just blowing money, which they really shouldn't be because they don't know how long they're going to be homeless. Yeah.
I guess they're kids. Like, you could just like walk down the street to Konbini and get all that stuff for like 1/3 the price.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, it ends up being their last night together, but we see that Hina tells him, like, actually, I'm starting to, like, fade away, and I have to stop doing this, and I can't, continue doing this anymore, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then they fall asleep, and then when Hodaka wakes up, she's not there anymore, right?
I do want to back up, because there's one thing that I think is ambiguous, is she asks him, like, right before sleep, like, do you want the weather to be good again? I think he says, yeah. And then they wake up and she's gone. Because I think she uses the power. I think it's implied she uses the power again, but it's not very clear.
Okay, I don't quite remember.
Because then later when he sees her... in the place they meet that we'll get to, she's like, if I come back, the weather will be bad again. Like, I think she went there to save it from the rain or something.
From what I remember, after she leaves, it does stop raining, right?
Yeah, because he says we'll never use the powers again. We'll just like run away together. But then she asks him something like, "Do you want me to make it sunny one more time?" So I remember the first time seeing it too, being like, "Well, did she do it or not?" I guess it's vague. I don't know.
Because if I remember
it is sunny
correctly,
again, like immediately the next day.
Yeah, so in the chase scene, I remember it wasn't raining anymore.
No, there's like puddles everywhere, but it's nice and sunny.
Yeah. So anyway, so she leaves to go back to as we learn later, and Hodaka magically figures this out. Okay, I'm willing to suspend disbelief there that he figures it out because of the magic coincidence that they ended up at the abandoned building, and that she tells him all about, how important plot point. So the mother dies, and then she tries to save the mother by going up to the roof and like making it stop raining. Like, what was the logic there?
I think it's a rainy day as the mother's dying, and there's like a Tori gate, which implies some kind of temple or shrine that has like a singular beam of light shining on it, even though everywhere else is like cloudy and rainy. Mm-hmm. I think her idea is just like she wants to pray for her mother, and that looks like there might be something going on, so she decides to go there to pray, and then the whole weather stuff is just kind of incidental. Yeah,
and just somehow she ends up getting the powers from that.
It is weird that like she chooses to like leave her mother literally as she's dying to... She can see it from the window of the hospital. It doesn't look that far, but realistically that would take like 30 minutes to walk over there.
Yeah.
And I need to point out the mother is literally dying. I believe the mother dies before she comes back.
Yeah. So anyway, so somehow that's how she gets the powers to make it stop raining and produce lightning on demand.
Yeah, you just get storm powers. It's not only making things sunny. She could fly if she put her mind to it.
She's Ororo. Anyway, so so she disappears, and then the police come to the Love Hotel, right? It's
gotta look really bad in the Love Hotel. It's just him and the brother.
True. So, okay.
But never suspect that for even a moment, because
nothing weird there. The girl has disappeared, and so this again, there's problems here. So the police, fine. I'm willing to believe that the police managed to track down through cameras or whatever that they ended up at the Love Hotel. Fine. They come in, they take Hodaka away, but they never search him. They don't take away his bag, I guess, because later on he still has the gun.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but you're right. Because they get him all. I forgot. Are they putting him in a cell when he makes an escape, or is it like an interview room? I remember he just looks in a room and then runs away.
I think it seems like it's going to be a kind of interview room, but he managed just to slip away from them.
He literally just runs. They're just not holding him for some reason.
Absolutely, like inept police. He just runs out of the police station. Just nobody stops him at any point.
Everyone just like looks at him dumbfounded as he's running by. No one goes like grab that kid.
Hey, isn't that the kid that had the gun? Shouldn't we check his pack? Oh,
isn't that the kid that shot at our operative and kidnapped a girl and possibly her brother?
Yeah. Oh, no, we're not going to take away his bag. Shouldn't we be a little bit more careful about how we handle him? Oh, it's that kid running away. Shouldn't we try to stop him? Oh, no.
It's even worse from the police perspective. He's an armed child who kidnapped a girl who went missing. They find him with the girl's brother, but the girl is missing. They have video that he has a gun, but for some reason they don't check his bag.
Yeah.
But, literally from their perspective, he's kidnapped and possibly killed this girl who's now missing and then, made off with her brother.
Yeah, and then he's running away from them because he's utterly obsessed with going to meet Hina at this abandoned building, which he assumes, he just totally comes to the conclusion that she's going to be there, which she is, according to the movie. I don't know if this is some dream sequence or whatever. I have no idea, but that's what the movie presents, so we just have to go with it. So he's running, and then the niece of Suga, the guy that took him in, just happens to show up on a scooter. She's just there, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing running?" And it's like,
Drive.
I have to run.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to hop on and I'm going to run away from the police. So this woman, this grown woman, is a fugitive from the police now. She's on a police chase, like LA style, like helicopter in the sky following a scooter type police chase. Like, this does not happen in Japan. And if it were to happen, this lady would go to
news.
The whole country would be covering this, and she would go to jail for the rest of her life. And for what? This random runaway
she's
kid.
She's just a nice girl.
See, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, this is more unbelievable than a girl summoning lightning.
She also doesn't even know about the magic temple or magic weather controlling power, so literally she's just like, oh, you want to get away from the police? Sure, hop on.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the police revisited Suga, and they're kind of like putting more pressure on him because, you know, they're like, he must know something. And he ends up cooperating with them. But again, nothing wrong with what Suga did. Like, Hodaka is in danger.
Again, because the escape is immediate, right? So the guy who went to meet Suga thinks they still have the kid in custody. Like, what's he even going there to accomplish?
I'm not sure, and maybe I'm fuzzy on the sequence, but regardless, that visit ends up resulting in Suga going to the abandoned building somehow.
Which he doesn't even know about?
Yeah. I'm not sure why exactly that happens. But anyway, so the kid, Hodaka, ends up at the abandoned building, and Suga is there by himself at first.
Okay, I'll throw this in as possibly to fill the plot hole. I don't believe it's ever shown, but due to the Hodaka's job as the occult person, maybe he actually wrote down the story of the girl going there and getting weather powers for the magazine. Maybe that's how he knew. I don't think they ever say that. Maybe that was like a deleted scene, but I guess that could be.
Yes, that could be. Yes. So anyway, but Suga ends up there, and he's telling him, like, look, you got to turn yourself in. Like, this isn't worth it. You know, he's really like making a cogent, reasonable argument. Nothing wrong with what Suga is saying.
So Hodaka pulls a gun on him.
Hodaka, like, you know, he pulls a gun on this man that saved his life, took him in, is saying perfectly reasonable things because Hodaka knows. Look, I mean, Hodaka is like the only person that knows this, but like Hina is sacrificing herself. I mean, like Suga heard this story from the old man at some shrine or something, whatever. But like Hodaka is the only person that has seen, like, you know, like all the stuff that Hina can do. So I understand that he totally believes that she's going to disappear, but still, he pulls a gun on this man that saved his life and took him in and gave him money and is taking care of him. Like, that's sorry, I don't.
We gotta point out, like, Suga is unarmed and literally just trying to talk him down. He's not doing anything threatening at all. Yeah. And the response is pull a gun on him.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole gun subplot here, for me, is totally unnecessary. You could have gotten the same story without inserting this gun for this heightened tension that is totally, totally, totally unnecessary. So I really don't like that this gun was there, and it just makes
Hodaka look like more of a crazy person. I don't know. Maybe like the whole point is supposed to be like it's a satire of seishun romance, and you're supposed to think Hodaka's an idiot. But I really don't think that's what he was going for.
I mean, there's not enough surrounding evidence to support that theory. If that was the intent,
the movie seems to be praising and supporting him, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah. So then the police show up. And now Hodaka's pointing a gun at the police.
Yeah.
This is insane in Japan. This is
insane anywhere. I think pulling a gun on the police is gonna not end well in any country.
Yeah. I mean, if it was the US, Hodaka would not have survived, but
yeah. But it was the US, it would have killed him long ago.
Yeah. But then I think so the police tackle Hodaka, but then Suga tackles the police, right?
Yeah, he doesn't like seeing them like be rough with his surrogate son now, I guess.
But this is a man tackling the police in Japan. This is a serious crime.
But it's for love, man.
This is totally unjustifiable in a court. There's no evidence that would support this. Like, there's a kid pointing a gun at the police, and you're telling me that a man tackling the police defending themselves is justifiable in Japan, which is notable for like its 99.9% like conviction rate or something like that. Like none of this makes sense to me. So thanks to Suga tackling the police, Hodaka manages to make it up to the roof. Now he manages to save Hina by like floating up in the sky, and there's like these water fish floating around them, and like
if you go through the weird magic Tori gate, you just either float or teleport to a giant field on top of a cloud.
And there's floating fish or something like that, right? Like
it
water
all
fish.
looks visually impressive. No complaints.
It's beautiful.
Here. Yeah,
it's utterly beautiful. It's impressive. It's beautiful. Again, no complaints there. But anyway, he says like, no, you can't leave, Hina. I know if you leave, you're supposed to like, fix the weather, but no, come back. We'll figure this out. Like we can make this happen somehow.
Yeah, I think the implication is she's causing like an imbalance in the weather by using her power. So now it's like gonna rain a ton to make up for it, and if she stays there,
right.
I don't know.
And there's this whole subplot about like there has to be a human sacrifice in order to fix the weather.
Apparently there doesn't though. You can just not do that.
Yeah, you can just not fix the weather because that's what happens. So they're floating up in the sky. They come back, whatever. And then what ends up happening is, I guess, the police capture Hodaka again. They deport him back to his little rural island, and he ends up in like probation of some kind. For basically 3 years. He goes to high school and all that. And judging by the reaction of the girls that meet him in the island, he becomes quite popular with the girls. Again, we don't know why.
He has no personality, and he no longer has a gun. It was his only feature.
Yeah. Kid that wants to run away. I guess he still wants to run away because he goes back to Tokyo. But even though in that ending, like in that end sequence, he kind of implies that he doesn't even really understand why he wanted to run away so bad because things weren't that bad.
Yeah, I think that's one of the weaknesses of the movie. Like, I was going to say this later. I feel like this type of movie, a lot of these seishun romances in anime and manga, they want to have, like, deep themes about, like, growing up and problems, but they're so superficial and shallow about it. Like, if he had serious home problems, then they should have mentioned those and gave him a reason for running away. But the fact that he apparently doesn't have real home problems, it seems like he was just bored, makes the whole willing to shoot people and fight to the death seem really strange.
Yeah, I think a story can be told without having to delve into Hodaka's, reasons for leaving. But if you try to do that, then you can't contradict at the ending, like this whole thing, like it ends up being this paradox. And I don't know, maybe are you trying to say something about how teenagers blow things out of proportion? I guess.
Because if that's the case, it undermines the whole love plot, because...
Then, it's like that love was pointless because it's just a bunch of teenagers being in love for no reason.
Yeah, because if that was the point, I would want some sort of little epilogue scene like, oh, it was just like teenager, like, crush. We grew away from each other almost immediately after, but that doesn't happen, so apparently it's not about them blowing stuff out of proportion.
Yeah. And
he also ran away from something that wasn't that bad, but was willing to die to stay away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, so we get this 3-year time skip, kind of like the time skip in Your Name. So, you get this big time skip, and then he goes back to Tokyo. He meets up with Suga again, and we end up learning that it never stopped raining in Tokyo, and it's been raining every single day, and that a big chunk of Tokyo became totally flooded, and you can't live there anymore. And we go back to that old lady that had hired him and Hina to like clear the sky that day, and we find out that she had to leave her home because it had flooded, and now she's living somewhere else. But she says like, it's just Tokyo going back to the way it is because Tokyo used to be, more ocean and it was just filled in land anyway. And then Suga, to add on to this, he says like, oh, the world was always screwed up. If you think it's your fault, don't worry about it because the world was always screwed up. It's always going to be screwed up.
Despite it literally being his fault.
Despite, apparently the story is telling us that yes, it was their choice that screwed everything up. But Suga is saying like, no, the world was always screwed up. But we're also getting these, like, the lack of any sort of impact of the fact that Japan's biggest city, economic center, population center is basically devastated.
Yeah, this is the other thing they try to just, like, blow off like it's no big deal. This would kill thousands and leave hundreds, millions homeless?
Yeah.
And there's like, nah, we're fine.
Like, so even if it doesn't kill anybody in the immediate because it's a gradual flooding and people slowly left, the economic impact and societal impact that this would have on the city and Japan the whole country, because Tokyo is such a huge portion of the population and the economic center, the cultural center. The impact that this would have on Japan.
This would destroy
is immense,
Japan.
immense. And yet it's just shrugged off as, the world was always screwed up and Tokyo's just going back to the way it was.
Yeah, people are like living in houses that are flooded in knee-deep water as if that's just not an issue.
So, like, it's like the movie's trying to make an impact with its visuals, but with what it's telling us, it's saying, like, this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like, because it's when you see the visual, Tokyo flooded, oh my God, this is... But the story doesn't, like, expand on that in any way.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
They're in love.
Yeah, and so then somehow I think it's a coincidence, but anyway, so the 3 years he doesn't contact Hina, he doesn't try to contact her. I don't know why, but he felt kind of weird about doing it or something. I think it's addressed vaguely in like one sentence, but
which again, it undercuts the whole this being like some love story.
Yeah,
if you really love someone, you wouldn't be like, I was a little bit embarrassed, so I decided not to talk to you for 3 years.
Yeah. And so then, if I remember correctly, at the ending, he kind of coincidentally meets her, right?
Yes. It was a place they had been together before. I'm trying to remember what happened there. Something significant happened there, because it was like some weird like little hill.
Okay. So, well, at least there's that. But basically, the ending is, I mean, aside from the specific details, it's a carbon copy of Your Name.
He's done that in other movies too. That's just the generic Makoto Shinkai ending.
Yeah.
Time lapse, and then people just meet as strangers, and then like, hey, I think I still love you.
But see, like, in Your Name, it's kind of earned. Like, yes, we did nitpick it a little bit, but the emotional impact of the ending is earned because you get to know these characters. There's actual motivations. They learn about each other.
They have
There's
character.
Things going. Yeah, they have character. There's things going on there that. Like, yes, there's little plot holes here and there or whatever. Like, you can really, really be picky. And yes, there's things that you can kind of say, like, oh, that doesn't make sense. But
and not immediately meeting each other makes sense because they're, like, magically losing their memories. So, yeah. Here, he just chooses not to contact her for some reason.
Yeah. Amidst this background of, like, Tokyo and all that, where you're already going, like, but wait a second, like you don't know what it's trying to say, right? And then you're thrown this moment that is supposed to be the emotional kind of like, yay, they're come back together. But you go like, so what? Like, why? Like,
there was no reason for them not to be together. A better movie would have had them dealing with the guilt of destroying the city, but none of that. Yeah. I mean, if you want to like be extra, look, I think that overall, even if they waved it away like we were kids and didn't know what we were doing, oh well, like they should at least acknowledge it, but it's just completely ignored. Yeah.
Like I mean, so it's perfectly fine to tell a similar story, but when you do tell a similar story, you run into the fact of like you're gonna get compared to another movie that you've already done. Right. And a lot of people, I think, might say, like, it's not fair to compare it to Your Name. I think it's totally fair to compare it to Your Name because it's such a structurally and in many ways thematically similar story where you go, like, if I have if I have Oreos and I have a knockoff to Oreos, I'm just going to eat the Oreo. Right? Like,
yeah. I really do get the impression that he kind of made his own checklist for what will be a successful station movie. And he's just going through the motions, and it became more heavily influenced by Kimi no Nawa because that was like his big one. But he didn't get why that one succeeded, so this one just has weird similarities that don't make sense in the context of its own story. Yeah.
Like, I suspect that also there was a lot of outside pressure from
there probably was
studio
people like, no, make it more like this.
So, yeah. And, like, I kind of suspect that maybe the cameos from the Your Name characters were maybe, pressure from the studio as well. Who knows? But, like, I feel bad for Makoto Shinkai in that sense. Like, he probably did have something that he wanted to tell, but there was probably a lot of outside pressure, both well, outside pressure and internal pressure on his own, where he wanted to do something good, and maybe, it all got mixed up and he didn't quite tell the story that he wanted to tell. I don't know, but I do feel sympathy for anybody in that position. That being said, like, if you're going to tell a story that has such similarities, it's unavoidable that you're going to get these comparisons.
I just realized at the ending we see that Suga is doing fine and like started a new business and whatever, but we don't see the niece. I'm gonna now infer
she's probably in jail.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. She actually did get arrested.
Yeah, she's still in jail. Yeah, she's never getting out. Yeah,
Suga got out because just sexism. He's a guy, so he can tackle police. But she's a girl who ran away, so that's much worse.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Going on a police chase or tackling the police, I'm not quite sure which would be seen.
It's got to be the tackle, right? That's actually assaulting them. Running away is just running away.
True.
She didn't really endanger anybody.
Well, you could argue that the fact of running away is endangering innocent bystanders and the police themselves. So
I guess it's,
I
don't know what the official law is. I would assume assaulting the police officer. I don't know. There's probably like how the chase happens, like how fast you're going and how far you're going, and if you're running lights and stuff.
Yeah. I see. Chases don't happen in Japan, so I've never seen any sort of thing like that. Like, not that kind of chase. Maybe a bicycle chase, but not like a car chase or anything.
I like how her little dinky scooter's somehow outrunning them too. Like the full cars can't keep up with these little, barely fast enough to go on a real road scooters. Like,
that scene, isolated of all context, was beautiful, exciting. Yeah, the water, like, coming off the road, like, driving, like, it was a wonderful scene. Fun, great, beautifully animated. But within the story, it's a horrible moment.
I agree. We are kind of beating up on it, but again, the animation, the visuals are just great across the board the whole way through.
Yeah. And, like, I like that character. I like the niece. I really like her.
I do have one other complaint I want to bring up.
Yeah.
They got, like, a real band to sponsor them, Radwimps.
Oh,
which annoyed me. Yeah?
They did the music for Your Name, and then so they collaborated again on the music.
Yeah, I guess they became more popular or something in the intervening time, because they literally just put, like, 2 or 3 music videos in the middle of this movie.
Well, Your Name did have at least one or two,
didn't it? Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
Please stop doing that. It's really distracting.
It is, and I think, look, I kind of liked it in Your Name, but I think the music just was not as memorable in this one as it was in Your Name, and I didn't like it. For me, it was rather forgettable.
I feel like it's acceptable to have, like, introduction scene and then, like, music playing over the credit sequence. But they're just, like, in the middle of the story and just like, okay, pause for 2-minute music video now.
Yeah. No, I see that. And I in my opinion, I think it was better done in Your Name. And this one is kind of like...
I think I remember feeling really out of place there too, but...
That's fine. It's totally fine to have a different opinion there. Nothing wrong with that. That's a purely subjective thing. But I do agree that it was in Tenki No Ko, it was even less impactful and like, just again, it's another one of the things. It's like you're putting in so many elements that Your Name is so known for that like you can't not compare it.
It really looked like he wanted to do like the same thing again, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So well. I wonder what his next one will be. The same thing again, I imagine.
I saw an interview where he was talking a little bit about the next one, and it had something to do with some sort of disaster. So I'm already getting like...
Honestly, the movies before Kimi no Na wa were also kind of like this, so he's just remaking the same movie a whole lot.
Yeah. And like, at least like, I don't really remember much of 5 centimeters per second, but at least I remember that there wasn't like a huge disaster and like some supernatural sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the disaster may have started with Kimi no Na wa. But the whole... I feel like there's a lot of rain in the older movies too.
There was a lot of snow in 5 centimeters per second.
I barely remember that one. I just remember not enjoying it. I guess the one that I told you that I also didn't like was The Garden of Words. I think it was rainy in that too.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I highly don't recommend that movie.
Yeah. So I said this before we started recording, but I think it I know we're kind of tearing on this movie, but we got to be honest, and it is what it is. I think that if Tenki no Ko had come out before Kimi no Na wa, it would not have had the same amount of impact as Kimi no Na wa did when it came out. So, because I think Kimi no Na wa just executed it so much better. So, that's my opinion, and it's perfectly fine to have a differing opinion than what we have. So, nothing wrong there.
Okay, I just checked Wikipedia. Apparently, his next movie is Suzume no Tojimari.
Yeah.
Which the English is Suzume's Locking Up, which is another awkward way to say it, but whatever. And the poster is a young schoolgirl standing in water in a city, like a flooded city.
What?
Which makes you think, okay, there's now the Makoto Shinkai cinematic universe, but then the plot says it takes place in Kyushu, so... No, he just wants everything to be wet and rainy no matter where the movies are.
Well, maybe this time it's another heavy rain, but going off the heavy rain that happens in Kyushu in the past few years. I don't know, but
apparently it's got a magic door that takes you places. It's the Dokodemo door.
Oh my god! I hope it's got something refreshing to it, because
I hope it's not a love story. There's a 0% chance of that, but I can hope.
Yeah, I hope it's an adventure thing or something like that, because
he did do one of those. I kind of liked it, but I heard his fans strongly dislike it. In English, it's Children Who Chase Lost Voices, I guess.
Okay.
Hoshio o Kodomotachi, or just Kodomo. It does feel like he's trying to rip off a Ghibli movie, because it's very much girl goes to magic world and has an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I barely remember it, but I think I liked it.
I haven't seen it.
I guess its English name is... Wait, it has another English name? Also known as Journey to Agartha.
Okay. Sounds very different from everything else I've seen.
It's the only one that I think is not high school kids in love.
Okay.
Well, I guess I haven't seen his really, really early short stuff.
So anyway, we're running a little long, so I just want to wrap up a couple things. The names. So in a lot of Japanese media, characters have names that have some sort of significance, or at least they're a pun of some kind. Usually they're either funny or it takes a little bit of brain work to kind of figure out the significance.
If I want to jump in, if they're lighthearted or childish, I think this is funny and fine. But when you're going for a serious story like this, it just feels so silly to put it in.
Let's just discuss specifically. So the names of the characters, the two main characters, are Amano Hina. So Amano means heaven, field. Hina is the second kanji from Taiyo, which is sun. And then the na is come. So sun, come, heaven, field.
She's literally named what she is.
She's literally named what she is. She makes the sun come, and there's a heaven field that she goes to when she's sacrificed, right? It's.
I think she goes when she gains the powers too. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's no extra layer of meaning. There's no subtlety. Yeah.
I think this gets excused by Western audiences because they don't know the meanings directly, so if they look it up, they're oh, that's kind of clever. But when you know the Japanese, it's you just name your hero. I am Hero Can Do Anything. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Girl Weather Controller. It's it's so on the nose. In
Kimi no Na wa, Mitsuha, there's more to the name. You have to think about it a little bit more. And then I think the last name also had something to it. I don't remember, but it takes a little bit of deciphering. It's not in your face, right? And most of the time when a creator uses these names, there's a little bit of a hidden something to it, right? There's an extra layer. It's almost like an Easter egg. This, I don't think you can call this an Easter egg because, like you said, it's like calling your protagonist Sunny Girl, Heaven, Magic Woman or something.
Magic Woman, Sunny Girl?
Yeah. Oh, so I guess you're the magic girl, Sunny Woman. Oh, okay.
It would be actually if they did it in English if her name was just Sunny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little too But anyway, and then for the boy Hodaka, and the last name was Morishima. So this was the last name was a little extra something, but I looked it up, a little article about it. But Mori is forest, so. water, kind of accumulates in the forest. It's kind of, necessary for the forest. It gets filtered out, kind of purified. So, forests and water kind of go hand in hand. Shima is a land that is surrounded by water. Ooh, pretty literal to what we're talking about with Tokyo.
That's a little
and then
digging. I would just say Morishima implies he's from an Inaka island, because he is.
You could interpret it that way too. I think that's perfectly fine. Then Hodaka, ho is sail, as in sailboat, and then taka, as in takai, as in tall or high. So the interpretation is kind of
Sailing
like
high.
He's sailing high. So kind of like he's the perseverant guy that kind of, by pushing and pushing and pushing, kind of sails high, and I guess ends up literally floating in the sky when he tries to rescue Hina. So yeah, I don't know. It's that. I mean, it's fine, but especially the Hina name was like just too in your face, in my opinion.
I don't remember the kanji because it's mostly spoken. Is Suga just like the normal Suga? Because I don't see a connection.
I don't remember. Maybe those didn't have any specific.
They're not main character enough, and I also don't remember Senpai's name.
Nagi, but I don't remember the well, Nagi. I don't remember. I
Nagi,
never saw
right?
his kanji. Yeah, I never saw his kanji, so I don't know. So yeah, the names were meh. So anyway, I don't want to keep going on much longer. I mean, we could keep saying stuff, but basically, I want to just sum things up here. Is
Nagi's kanji apparently means calm.
Oh, and he is the calm, like level-headed kid in the story, I think. So yeah, there you go. On the nose. Anyway,
apparently he's actually Nagisa, but he's shortened to Nagi.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that. Thank you.
The police officer is also Yasui, which is also calm.
Oh, so everybody else is calm. And one last thing, like some people try to like get like climate change kind of meaning out of this movie.
Really?
Yeah. I only saw this in Western like media.
Yeah.
So not that surprising because I think climate change is more like talked about in Western media than in Japanese media. That being said, I've seen a couple interviews of Makoto Shinkai. He never mentions that. Granted, he's not very talkative about kind of the meanings that he puts into his movies. Also, in some of the interpretations that I saw in Japanese, they don't talk about that at all. So yes, death of the author, you can read that into it if you really want to try, but I don't think that was the intent whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't either. I can see ending with Flooded Tokyo is similar to that, but the events that cause it are like completely unrelated.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really see that meaning, but to each their own, And then one last thing that I want to point out. Here is one interpretation that I saw by a Japanese,
because human actions causing weather change, but climate change. But in this movie, their inaction is what causes it to flood.
Yeah, and the point that Suga makes is like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's all screwed up anyway.
Yeah, the whole ending of like this is the natural state anyway.
It comes off as an anti-climate change.
Yeah, I think if you want to go the climate change route, it has to be a climate change denial movie, which I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. So, but again, some people want to do that. That's their prerogative. One last thing that I want to point out about interpretations. I saw this one video by Japanese. I think he's like a movie critic or something, but he pointed out something that I thought was interesting. I don't know if this was at all like a conscious thing. Probably wasn't, but still interesting. The fact that Hina is, both Hina and Hodaka can be seen as interpretations of Makoto Shinkai's desires to make a good movie. And in making a good movie, he kind of loses himself because there's all these outside pressures that force him to kind of lose himself and his vision. And so he ends up like Hina kind of disappearing. But Hodaka is this part of him that is still like just wanting to do like a masterpiece, this really good work. He wants to tell this story. And so he's kind of in conflict with himself. And at the same time also like suffering because of that. I guess you could see it that way, but I don't think that was a conscious thing on Makoto Shinkai's part. But you never know. I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
I'm a little curious. I didn't read any of the Western analysis of this movie, but I've noticed a trend that kind of reminds me of the climate change thing. I just kind of want to throw out there.
Yeah.
Did anyone say that this was in any way related to like the atomic bombs in Japan?
No, I didn't see that anywhere.
Because almost always when I see a Western audience talking about anything in Japan, like novel, movie, anime, they almost always try to say it's somewhat related to or influenced to that. And I honestly think that's just a bias Western people bring with them. Like when they hear Japan, especially Americans, if they hear Japan, the first thing they think of is nuclear bombs, so they just assume that's always there. Because like you said, I think the climate change stuff is much bigger in the West, so I think they're kind of bringing that idea with them when they watch this, even though in the Japanese context, that wasn't... I don't think at all that was thought of as an influence for this movie.
I mean, it's unavoidable that you're going to bring your own biases into it. But then that does often result in you seeing meanings that were never intended to be seen that way,
I've
right?
seen so many people like, this is just an allegory for nuclear bombs. Like, what are you talking about? This is made by someone who was born 30 years after that.
So I think, a lot of times the way that Japanese audiences see a lot of these works is quite different from the way that Westerners try to see it, because they lack some of these people that create content. That's not to say that they don't bring forth insightful observations, but I do think that they just bring forth sometimes interpretations that were never intended to be there.
And there's always the argument that even if the artist wasn't thinking that, there can be like subconscious influences growing up here, but
yeah.
Sometimes I do see people trying to like strongly say things that I think are very tenuous at best.
Yes. But anyway, let's wrap it up. So, is Weathering with You bad? My answer is no, but it is beautifully mediocre.
My answer is kind of yes. Again, maybe just because I saw it the second time, I'm more negative. The visuals are extremely good. The second time watching it, they were much less impactful. I watched it with my fiance, who had never seen it before, and she did not like it. She wasn't strongly against it. She was just like, it was kind of boring, kind of.
So the only reason why I hesitate not to say it's outright bad, and bad is a very loose term, very subjective. Exactly, because and maybe if I watch it a second time, maybe I won't be so generous, but I wasn't bored. I liked pretty much all the main characters. I did want to see what happened till the end. I never felt like, oh my God, I have to turn this off. Like,
that is true.
There was enough there that in a way had me enjoy it and keep thinking about it. But like, if I were to scratch the surface even a little bit, it all crumbles.
Okay. So whatever, like wherever the border between good and bad is, like if you think it's like a 60 out of 100 or a 5 out of 10, it's that plus 1.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
It's like a D plus C minus kind of thing.
Yeah, C minus C. I'll be as generous as that. But yeah, like I enjoyed Your Name. I think that's the better one of these two. I do recommend people to check that out. I think that's an enjoyable movie.
Solidly good.
It's good. It's well done. Yes, you can nitpick, and yes, there's some problems here or there, but the logic and the story structure and the emotional moments are good enough where I'm totally fine overlooking some of the nitpicks, and the nitpicks end up becoming something fun to talk about rather than pivotal plot like problems. Unfortunately, with this one, the nitpicks are not just nitpicks, and to me, they are crucial problems with the overall story that impact the overall meaning and things that this thing was trying to say, but overall, I'm not quite sure what it ends up trying to say.
Really simply, the story is much more of a mess, but the visuals are still good. But if you want to see one or the other, Kimi no Na wa, the story and visuals are good.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if you said it before we started recording or not, but at some point you said that if this movie had come out before Kimi no Na wa, you don't think it would have been nearly as significant of a hit.
Yeah.
And I agree completely. This was completely riding on the coattails of the better movie and did not live up to it.
Yeah. And maybe it would have still done well, but I don't think it would have done as well.
I've seen much worse.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, like, yeah, I've seen plenty of Japanese animated movies and live action movies where I go like, I either barely make it to the end, or there's been a couple that I just haven't watched till the end.
I've seen other people walk out of theaters in Japan for some of these, which surprised me because I feel like Japanese audiences never walk out.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, I thought this lady went to the bathroom, but she just never came back.
Maybe a kid with a gun came and took her away.
I think she was with someone too. She was like with a guy. Maybe she was having like stomach issues or something. I don't know. But like she walked out and then she never came back. And I was like, I wonder if she just. It was a horrible movie too. So I'm wondering if like she got out there to go to the bathroom. Was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go shopping instead because it was like inside of a mall.
What I will say is you have been to way more movies in Japan than I have. I used to go regularly, but you continue to go, and you go a lot more often.
Yeah, and I was actually making a point to go see all of these animated, not based off some anime series I haven't seen movies, because I really like them in general.
Yeah.
And this one would be, for me, We should do more of these, because there's another one I want to talk about called Mirai no Mirai.
I have not seen that one.
It got a lot of hype, and I didn't like it at all. So there's my review.
Okay. Well, okay.
I like the other movies by the same people, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally fine with doing more, but we'll just space them out because, or we can always do them and then we can make them Patreon exclusives for a while. You know.
I got a request. You know. I saw one last week. I saw Dragon Ball Super Superhero. We should talk about that.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one yet, but I do intend on seeing it when I get the chance. So,
for those of you in the audience who don't know, which is probably everyone because I don't think I mentioned it, I am a very big Dragon Ball fan.
I'm quite the fan too. I have watched Dragon Ball Super, but anyway, we're going off on a tangent here at the end where we're already long. So anyway, that's our take on Tenki No Ko. I have no problems with you liking it. Please, you are free to send us your opinion, ichimon@japankyo.com. I will happily read it, but let's just keep this civil. You can tell me like what you liked about it.
I am worried we're going to lose Patreons. Like, this is the best movie ever. What's wrong with you two? It changed my life.
And that's totally fine.
Fine.
Like sometimes you watch a specific like movie or TV show that hits you at just the right moment in your life, that this one specific thing or element or theme in it just changes your life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I have had that with movies that I understand aren't even good, but just because I saw them at one really good moment, I still love them. Yeah.
No, there's plenty of movies that are objectively not good, but I love some of those movies. So there's nothing wrong with that. We all like movies for different reasons. Blah blah blah. I know, huge disclaimer here at the end.
Yeah, we get kind of nitpicky, but But I do think some people get distracted by the really good visuals to overlook the other issues.
I do think so. But if there's something that speaks to you about this movie, nothing wrong with that. Enjoy it. Watch it 10 times. I have no ill feelings to you. It's just that, for us, it didn't quite work as well as Your Name. And it is what it is.
And like I said, the first time I watched it, I was much, much more positive towards it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the rewatch that it was much lower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if I watch it again, I'll go, no, never mind. This is the greatest movie ever.
Well, the lesson is
every odd viewing
until you like it again.
Even viewing you don't like it.
Yeah. Or only watch it once. I guess that's what the takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like it, just don't go back. Right. You'll just stay with your happy memories.
All right, if you made it this far, we truly appreciate you listening because this was a long one. But thank you, and see you next time.
Goodbye.